most famous language learning app, Duolingo,
Duolingo.
they announced that they're replacing most of their employees with AI. Using an app like that to learn a language anyway is kind of questionable. That's like a bigger topic. Um,
Um,
you
I
know,
no, I mean I don't know, but I still have like I don't know if you can see that, but I have like
yeah,
an
you have a streak there for
851 is my current streak on
some people live in small countries and they want to build a business. And even if they got like a good rollout in their home country, it would be too small. So why not just make it English right away and international?
As an entrepreneur, how do you navigate these challenges, or what are the challenges that you face in general?
Well, as an entrepreneur, you have a vision. You want to make something happen, or you want to.
So, as this has always been the saying that ideas travel fast and people always travel faster. We have been building differently, scaling differently, and going borderless. Globalization has been the new thing. And that is when Founders Across Borders was born. And I'm so excited to share this conversation with you, Marc. It's a pleasure to have you. This is Mr. Marc Green with us, who's been a TED speaker right now with more than 8 million views on his TED Talk. He is a multilingual, knows more than 10 languages, and has been teaching the same on his school community. At the same point in time, building a skincare brand. If I'm right, it's called as Camel Latte. And
That's right.
has been a speaker, lecturer, a digital nomad, like working with so many people from so many parts of the world. And I am so excited to know about your journey being a speaker, lecturer, startup advisor, your entrepreneurial journey. How have you been able to manage this entire multicultural experience of living across different countries, cultures, coming from different spaces? Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Yukta. I'm very excited to be here. That was a very long introduction. A lot to talk about, I guess. Well, I think it would be easiest maybe just to start a little bit. You asked, like, how do I manage this multicultural everything? I kind of already grew up like multiculturally, and maybe I could talk about that for a minute. So I grew up with parents from. Can you hear me, or did I drop
Yeah, I
out?
can hear you.
It's working. Okay. Yeah, I grew up with parents from two different countries that had
Oh,
two different religions and two different, native languages, of course. It's not that that's not like super uncommon. Like a lot of people grow up in like, bilingually or in a multinational household. I guess like over my childhood and my life, it started to become more and more extreme in a way. So because I was moving around between like the two countries of my parents, and then most of the time during like my, I don't know, teenage years, I felt out of place sort of in both places, in both countries.
hmm,
I always felt like I was the foreigner. And then when I discovered, like when I had to learn other languages in school, I started
right.
with French. And um, then at first it was really difficult for me. But when I kind of cracked the code and like kind of was able to get to a level where I was able to speak and meet people and all of that, then it opened like this world to me where I said, well, I was always looking then for new places where I could kind of open up the culture and be part of it and find a new
Hmm.
home. So I was always sort of, I guess, maybe unconsciously looking for a new home, but not necessarily I just wanted to belong to places, because I
Yeah.
didn't have like one place where I felt like I belonged. And that, in a way, that never stopped. And I don't think I'm still looking for that one place where I belong. But it's because, as an adult, you realize that, especially growing up in the first world with all the possibilities we have, it seems, it's actually a small world.
Hmm.
And with technology now to connect to people around the world, and it's so easy now. So
Yes.
it's just, it's just a joy to be able to experience that. But so that's where basically my passion for travel, languages, and everything comes in. So I think I also when I when I was in high school, I moved from the US to Germany. And then in Germany, while I was still in high school, I like took the summer off and backpack traveled in Mexico, and without like even knowing any of the language. So I kind of started teaching myself that. And so I started having all these experiences. And then I think then like 6 years later, by the time I finished university studies, I had studied
Yeah.
in, I think, 4 countries with people from around the world. And since then, it like never stopped, right? So my wife is from other countries. She's actually from the Ukraine. And so, so my children, they've lived in like a few countries, and so they speak like 5, 6 languages. And I don't know. So people, when people see us like as a family, I don't know, shopping or whatever, and then like the kid will run to me and say something in, I don't know, English maybe, and I'll respond in another language. And then the mom will talk Russia to them, and then I'll speak German to her. And then people like, they can't figure out where we're from, like what kind of family it is. And that's kind of been like normal for us, even
Right.
though I understand it's kind of, it's not very normal. But yes, but it's kind of the norm for us. And I think more and more people are open to those kind of things. Like you mentioned digital nomads. I think I probably did something like that before it was even a thing, or it was even called that, right? So I think in 2008, I kind of downsized my whole business and moved yet to another country, and like none of my clients knew it. I just had like a voice over IP telephone and all that stuff that you could do today. Like it was just coming out. I mean, there were challenges, but
Yeah.
I have a feeling that I'm rambling, and I want you to maybe steer this conversation, because I'm just talking.
No, I
Tell me
actually loved hearing all of the
what
experiences, because it's interesting to know that it's so diverse that it's easier for you to like accept people from different cultures as well. For example, if someone who's Chinese or Japanese, or say someone is from like any country, like he is. I recently figured out the difference between Siberians and Albanians through a comedy reel that, they have eagle on their flag and they have this way of introducing themselves. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I think the adaptability to like meet new people from different countries and cultures, it is easier for you. Like, I don't think you would have a first bias just because they are coming from a different area. I think so.
I might have a bias sometimes, but the question is like, do you just ignore that and just go towards someone and meet them? And sometimes, you do gaffes, or you like say the wrong thing that's like culturally insensitive, and that can happen, but that's okay, but why not like just, I mean, we're all people, and it's always good to meet people from another place. The question is like, how can you communicate? And if you like, English is obviously the universal language for communication in most
Right.
cases when you first meet someone. But, it's surprising how many people actually have trouble with English, or are not yet at like a good enough level where they feel confident really having conversations. And in that case, you just have to kind of use your intuition to, use your hands and feet and just try to communicate. But that's how human connections are made. And obviously, the more you know about a culture, the more you can approach people, the easier it will be to form a connection. And sometimes it doesn't work, and I guess that's okay too. Yeah, I think, yeah. So growing up and through different cultures, I guess it makes you more open to meeting people, or to put prejudices aside for as much as possible,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
or
these
stereotypes rather. Yeah.
actually, yes, I have figured this out that for me as well, like I spent a lot of time in States and I spoke to a lot of people. There was one podcast that I was recording, and then on the call, the person says that, you know how people perceive your country, because my origins are from India. I'm like, perceive as in, he's like, have you watched Indiana Jones? I said, one movie, yes, but he mentioned there's a Temple Run movie, and he said, if you have a look at the movie, that's how people perceive the country as. I was like, what? And the person was like, most of the people in states or around the West have the same perceptions because they didn't want to change that. And we had this entire it from a podcast, it turned more of like an argument and controversial
Wow.
stories. And it was like, okay, that's what you think, that's not true. And he was like, no, but this is what it is. Like, people still have that perception, and these are the stereotypes which would stay, or it will take time unless there's a revolution or you actually see people changing, or the stories that are traveling to the West, as long as they do not change, it would still be the same notion for a long period of time. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, and that's a big problem, because these are unconscious beliefs that you get from the tiniest little signals or things that you hear, or and then you just take them for granted. Even though none of us want to be like, you have stereotypes, and we all want to be open, but we're all full of these things, and it can be a challenge sometimes to be open.
I get that. And with respect to the challenge that you mentioned, that, like to be open, it's difficult. Since you have been an entrepreneur and you started your business in States and then in Germany as well, and then you have your supply chain right now for the current skincare business in some other country, and you're like manufacturing someplace else, supplying someplace else. So how does setting up that ecosystem look like, or having these distributions or people working in different parts, distribution channels in different parts of the world? As an entrepreneur, how do you navigate these challenges, or what are the challenges that you face in general?
Well, as an entrepreneur, you have a vision. You want to make something
Yeah.
happen, or you want to, or create a product or bring something to the market. And so
Right.
you have this idea, and then you run into stumbling blocks. At the first, you start building, and you get some momentum, and it's great. And then you encounter the first problem. And then, if you give up, then you're not really an entrepreneur. And so you try to like, what do you do next? What to do next? So when I was building one of my first ecom business was, I could talk about that. And it started with, I was actually doing like services. I had an agency and I was doing services, and I had a burnout from that. I was very, very stressed and was working like 11-hour days and started, getting sick from it. And I actually collapsed on an airplane to New York, and I had to like be on my back during the whole flight. And they took me with a wheelchair, and I spent a night in the hospital and a few more nights in my friend's house, like looking at the ceiling, thinking about my life. And when I realized like things had to change and I'm like overworking myself, that led to this idea that I should get out of the service business and also do something that scales, like with products. So the friend that I was visiting in the US, he was a filmmaker, and he had just made he had just filmed a series of yoga trainings that
Hmm.
were put out on DVDs. So this was in 2007 or something.
Yeah.
So he put out these DVDs, and I said, "Oh, you know what? I can bring them to Europe and I'll distribute them over there." So that was the idea. So what I did was I had to figure out how do you do that. So I got like the original film material,
Hmm.
and this was like on like different tapes and stuff. So this was all like kind of, it wasn't as digital as it is today. But I said, okay, what do I do? Like, if you, I don't know if you've used DVDs, because you're probably like the next generation, and like people don't have DVD players anymore. But
No,
that's how
I've
we used
seen
to.
them. I've seen them. I
You've
come from
seen
that
them.
generation who has used DVDs. I used to play movies and songs.
Oh, great. Okay, so the DVDs that were used for like with movies, when you put them in the machine, then you have like this menu that you control with your remote control, and you can
Remote.
choose the
Yeah.
language. Sometimes they have language options, sometimes they don't. Subtitles on and off. You could choose different things. So you have this menu. So what I had to do is actually I had to create like uh, a German spoken version of this training, and then to produce the DVD again in Germany with a menu where you can switch between English and German. All right. So there's technical parts of this where people have to like program that. There's people that have to record the DVDs. And I also had to find a speaker who would like be the voice of the yoga trainer. So
Right.
I found a woman with a great voice. So we brought her, and I booked like a sound studio where they would record us, and I had to translate the whole text. So that made me
Yeah.
a yoga expert, because I translated like a whole series of yoga texts. So I learned a lot about all the yoga poses that I had never even tried at the time. But yeah, I think this story is becoming too long. But essentially, like I had to figure out how to make this done. And so I finally had these products that I was able to start selling. Well, then the next question is, how do you sell? How do you distribute? How do you get them out? Right. So this was a time. So in 2008, one of the things I did, I put them on Amazon, because Amazon was just getting started, and that worked quite well. So people were ordering them, and so I sent them these yoga DVDs. But then I figured, hey, wait a minute. If you're going to order a yoga DVD to do yoga at home, because there was no like internet program where you can just get yoga, right?
Right.
YouTube didn't exist. So I said, yeah, but then people need yoga mats. Where are they getting them? They're buying them somewhere,
Hmm.
right? So I said, okay, maybe I can also offer them yoga mats and sell them on Amazon and even bundle it together. And that's what I did. But so I had to find suppliers. I found suppliers in Taiwan, in China, and I had to, figure out how, and everything I was just figuring out as I go. So how do you, like negotiate prices, have them send samples, make sure the material is like doesn't have bad stuff in it, that it needs like lab tests. Then what, like you have to buy barcodes for your product so they can be registered, and so and the interesting thing is, and what I was actually going to the best example, because you said, how does you make all this work with like
Yeah.
different countries?
Different.
So I was basically building this supply or this fulfillment chain, this fulfillment system. And what we didn't have at the time is something that's now called Amazon FBA, which is right now, if you want to sell products on Amazon, you create an account and you send Amazon the products and they store them for you and they fulfill the orders. But at that
Yes.
time, that didn't exist. Amazon was just an online catalog, basically. So if somebody ordered something, Amazon wouldn't send it. The only things they would send is books. But if you're a seller on Amazon, you would have to send the stuff yourself. So I had all these orders
Hmm.
of like yoga mats and yoga DVDs. And I said, what do I do? So I had to find a company like that have a warehouse that they could send it for me. So today it's called a 3PL, like a third party logistics center.
Yeah.
So I found a local one. I worked with them, and then but every time I got an order from Amazon, how do they know the order is there? It's like because I can't do it all manually, right? So I had a developer I was working with from India actually, and he wrote the system that will pull the orders from Amazon and have the warehouse would go in our system every day to download all the orders, and then they will upload the tracking numbers again, which is then sent back to Amazon for. So today you have modular options for this. Like an entrepreneur
Yes.
today can just say, okay, this is what I need. There's a solution for it. Or, you have like 5 tools to compare and you choose one, you pay a subscription fee and it works. But back then you had to build everything. I had to build like all the stuff, to make it work. So that kind of answers the question. So you just have to figure out as you go.
It's actually interesting since you started out when the dot-com boom was a thing and when the internet was changing landscapes, people were building their own websites, they still do. And I think so many people, those who are now the laggers in the internet space, are figuring out internet while you have AI. So that is like we've progressed, I think, into 100. So it's much more easier to figure things out. Or let's say just ask ChatGPT that I want to figure this out. This is my product. This is my business. What should I be doing? Can you automate it or how much you can automate it? So based on your experience back in 2008 and as we come to 2025 or even in future, let's say 2030 or 2035, what has exactly changed? One, I would definitely say ease of access, but what do you think about the customer buying behavior or the ease of doing a business now? What do you think about that? I mean, I still feel that based on my experiences, like registering a business is always difficult if you come from a different country or you want to establish a business in different country. You need to
Yes.
figure out the laws, partner with people, those who have either a residency or a citizenship in that country. When like I can say that because I was building this fellowship and we had to do it on a platform called as Stan. And at that point in time, they said that only these countries can participate or these people, those who have residencies. I literally was Googling just to participate in that challenge. How do I get a residency in this country? The best country I could figure out was Malta. I was like,
Mhm.
nice small country. I can have get an easy way. It said you need an investment of 375,000 euros to get one residency. And I was like, yeah, for now, I have to figure out how many assets I have to sell over here, probably 2 or 3 people's kidneys, maybe. And then I can have an investment.
Yeah, I mean, there are some challenges that are much harder to overcome. That's true, but at the same time, it's also you're very often, or most of the time, you're not the first person encountering this problem.
Yeah.
People have solved this before. People have had exactly the same challenge and maybe figured out some kind of solution for it.
Hmm.
So it's really, it's you have to be resourceful. Like you have to sometimes think out of the box. And this, of course, has become much easier if you have AI tools, if you know how to prompt them well, and they sometimes show you things that you never would have thought of, or that
Hmm.
you wouldn't have. They can actually help with that a lot. But yeah, AI, I think we're not really seeing the major effect it has. It's like very, very early internet now, right? But it's coming fast. So I think yeah, I mean, I think most of us are not aware like how much everything will change because of AI. And it's simply because it really hasn't yet. All it's done is like it increases output. It's very good at output, right? So you used to think like, um, when AI is going to come, like the robots, they're going to replace the truck drivers and all of that. But no,
Hmm.
they replaced like all the creative people now. or it's starting to replace creative work, and really well, and it's kind of worrying, but it shows how like everything in business is like, I guess the better the input, the better the output will be. So
Hmm.
AI is really good at giving output, but if you prompt it right, if you give it the right input, it's very good and sometimes better than humans, definitely much faster than humans at creating good output. Like there's a lot of things that can already do in coding, development, even copywriting. Like it it can, so it's very effective with that already, and it's only getting better.
Yeah.
Video creation, all these things, but it just shows that what we need to do is become more aware of our human side. And I think we used to have, until now, especially in entrepreneurship, you had something called the hustle culture.
Yes.
So it just showed you like, yeah, just keep working harder and more and more and more until you make it, and then no one can stop you. And I think this is going to change somewhat, because you cannot out hustle an AI with certain things. So I think you have to focus more on the things that make us different, and things that like really do deep thinking, um, and meaning. Because you can, if you're an entrepreneur now or you want to do business, you can use AI, and you can just copy paste other things, other people's work, or other people's funnels or whatever that is working, and you can sort of probably make it work, and you can make some money of it, or you have some success with it. But you're not creating meaning, you know and this is something that, in a world where AI is doing like all that implementation and all of the output,
Yeah.
we have to make sure that it's all meaningful. And this is, I think, also like a way to differentiate yourself, by real, because we're all unique individuals, right? All of us, each of us has different talents, and we're, who was it that someone said something really smart? He said like, you're the best in the world at being yourself. So like no one is better at being like yourself. Like all these exact combinations of personality and experience and everything that you have is like, you're the best at that. And that you just have to like kind of get familiar with what that actually is, and how you bring that to the world and to the market, and then you leverage AI. But I know, but it's like a high level, it's very abstract what I'm saying now. And it's just it's these are things to think about, and it's evolving. And I think in 5 months we'll be here, and some new things have come up, and we would which has maybe changed our opinion again. But it's just interesting to see, like in one of the spaces I'm in, which is like language learning, I see there was a
Hmm.
big controversy recently, because the probably number one most famous language learning app, Duolingo,
Duolingo.
they announced that they're replacing most of their employees with AI,
Hmm.
which from a technical point may make sense. I don't know, but people are not very happy with that idea. And I don't know what will turn out. I mean, using an app like that to learn a language anyway is kind of questionable. That's like a,
I mean, I don't know, but I still have, like, I don't know if you can see that, but I have like
yeah,
an
you have a streak there
851 is my current streak on Duolingo.
for which language?
So the most of it is I spend my time most of it learning Spanish. However, since I will be traveling to Finland and spending some time over there, so I'm just learning basics of Finnish. So it's like Minä olen Yukta. So very basics of it. So like how can I introduce myself? How can I ask them how are they? And few things here and there. I think for basic
Nice.
introduction, it's a good language. I'm not saying that I'm fluent in Spanish at all right now, but after practicing for so long, I still can understand if I read something in Spanish, as long as it does not contain a lot of complicated stuff out there. If it's basic information consisting of simple words, I can just read and comprehend that, okay, this is what this particular sentence means now.
Well, the exciting thing though is like, whether you learn with an app or with books or with a course or whatever, uh, in the end you're learning some basics that you have to get familiar with. But at a certain point, you take all that knowledge and you start using the language, using it, living the language, traveling, speaking to people, having to express yourself, and it's challenging. But once you make that switch, then you don't, the question isn't really, am I fluent, am I not fluent, what level am I, it doesn't really matter. Like, then you're like a user of the language, like you're a speaker of the language, and until then you're kind of a learner of the language. Yeah, you can understand texts, you can maybe have basic communication, The big thing comes when you're comfortable using the language, many situations, and you don't always have a chance to do that. Like traveling, of course, helps, or finding people to speak to, native speakers. And otherwise, you have to be very motivated. But it's also possible to build your own little environment in your home where you actually speak. But you have to do a lot of self-talk and a lot of things to do that. I mean, it's not impossible if that's like a very important goal for you. Um, but it's much more exciting to go
Yeah.
places where you can meet people from places, that are Spanish native speakers, and just find out, like,
Speak.
and especially a language like Spanish. From every country, they have their own expressions, their own things they say, their own stereotypes of the other Spanish speakers, what they do, and
Yeah.
and it's fun to learn all that, and to get familiar with that.
Each of these things I think is like it's so nuanced. There's just one language, Spanish. Someone in Guatemala has a different accent. Someone who's in Spain speaks it differently. Like most of the people say that if you go to Spain, they speak so fast that you won't be able to catch. Like apart from introductions, you won't be able to understand anything that they say or ask. And even if like just know how to ask for more wine as más vino por favor, and like figure out the basics of what food you want, how you want it, is because that's the only language you'll understand if you are an intermediate Spanish speaker. Someone in States, it's just like accents. An American accent is so different from British accent. If you speak to someone who's Italian or Spanish, you would know that, or Iranian, you would know, okay, that they come from the Middle East, that's why they have this accent. Or if you're from India, you have this accent. So I think just a language like English, which is so universally accepted, has so many different accents. So I love how nuanced language learning is. And I'd love to know about your take on. First, I would like to know how many languages you know and how easy it is for anyone to learn a new language. And do you think right now in the state we are in, wherein you have these translators as well, like which are inbuilt and I think have done successfully, like you just place a device and they'll just translate it for you. What do you think? I mean, it's a three-phase question, so you can like answer it accordingly.
Okay. Okay. How did you start? Oh,
Like
how
that,
many
how many
languages?
languages do you know? Yeah.
Right. So I would say I am fluent in 6 languages, which means
Hmm.
there are 6 languages with which I'm comfortable having a conversation like that, talking about any topic. I'm not perfect in them, but I'm, yeah, fluent. I don't think there'll be much that I don't understand or that I'm unable to say. Yeah. So those are the six.
Part
And,
one.
and those 6 languages, I kind of already learned them all by the time I was like, I don't know, like maybe a couple years after, like maybe 24 or something. I already knew that. Okay, well, I've still improved a little bit. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like, so in my 20s, I had these 6 languages, and everything else since then, I have, because I wasn't like working in the language space, and I had other hobbies as well, all kinds of things. I wasn't like actively studying other languages very intensively to a point where I would reach something called fluency. So, I mean, I'm able to communicate in probably 4 or 5 other languages as well, but I would consider myself a beginner and quite clumsy. And then there are plenty of, because of all the people I've met around the world, everywhere, there's so many languages where I can say a few words in, and just to break the ice and just to kind of connect to someone, right? But those aren't, I'm not a speaker of those languages at all. So yeah, so I can say 6 languages I'm fluent in. But what's much more interesting is the other questions you ask. Is like, okay, can anyone learn another language? Well, of course, everyone can learn another language. I think there's a lot of things holding us back. Our beliefs sometimes, beliefs that that it's difficult, belief that you're too old, belief that whatever it is. Uh, but every language and every is a different challenge, and depending on what your native language is, how different is it a different writing system, is it, how closely related are they? So the difficulty can vary, but it's definitely possible to learn a language, well, and to learn a language to a point where you can speak at some kind of level. Yes, of course, and people do it all the time, but um yeah, but you also have a lot of. I think the basics of language learning probably haven't changed in decades or even
Hmm.
longer. I think people now, like, they have all these new methods, and there's so much promise of this and that.
Right.
And I think I would take everything with a grain of salt, because it's very often it's just clever marketing. And because you don't learn a language in 3 months. I mean, there's like, super talented people who've done all these languages. I could probably, specific languages, I could probably learn from zero to a 50% level in a few months. Maybe I would be able to do it, but that would be an absolute exception. That's not like, you don't learn a language like super, super quickly. It's like, it's a process,
Yeah.
and you have to put the work in. And yes, there are things you could do that will there are things that just waste your time. There are things that you can do that speed up the process. And in the end, it's like, the most basic thing. It's a matter of between input and output. Input is what you read or listen to or hear or watch. And output is learning to write, to speak, to express yourself. All the language is basically inputs and outputs. And depending on where you are in your journey of the language, you will have a different focus, you will focus more on specific parts of input or versus output at different times. And and then there are always people who come with this method. One method is like only learn by speaking, only learn by speaking from the beginning. The other one's only learn by like input forever, and don't even speak for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to say about all of them, but don't look for the secret thing. The best thing is to have your motivation, like kind of to be in love with the idea of falling in love with a new culture and learning about it, because then you're open to it. That's the most important thing. And it's also, don't if it's just a thing to perform, then it's just a chore, and then if you need a routine and every day 1-2 hours, and I don't know how the Duolingo thing is for you. Like, I've used it, I've tried it, but I don't know, even though like it's very clever and gamified, I would
Yeah.
still get bored. And sometimes when I did it, just not to lose the streak, but there was no motivation anymore, because it's like it's so much repeating of the same thing. I mean, other people may need more repetition with some things. I don't know. Um, how happy are you with Duolingo and your progress with Duolingo? If you would rate it.
Like on a scale of 1 to 10? I would say progress. As I mentioned, that now I can understand if I read something, because I've like some days I've been wherein I've practiced 90 minutes a day. But the main motivation for most of the people is to not lose streak if they have like had more than 100, 200 or things. Like, it's difficult to lose that streak, because you're like, oh my God, I have a good streak. Similar to what Snapchat did, that every day you just have to open the app, even if you're sending a blank snap to someone, just because you've had streaks with so many people. So that is one reason I usually now use Duolingo, because I do not get time in my entire day to like spend time learning that language. If I talk about speaking or understanding real time, I've spoken to so many bilingual speakers also who speak Spanish. It is difficult for me to comprehend. Like, I met this woman on subway and she is lost. She's asking for directions, and I remember that okay, right is derecha and left is this, and I'm confused. I'm like, okay, is it right or is it left? If I direct her in the wrong direction, she's lost and she cannot speak English. So I asked her, "Tu hablas English?" She said no. I said, she asked that, and she just with one sentence, she just assumed I know the entire Spanish, and she started speaking so fast that I have lost the direction, and I don't. So I could understand, and I said that yo no comprendo. Like, so she's like, I was like, yeah. And I think suddenly we were now speaking the sign language more than the language itself. And it got difficult for me because she was speaking so fast. So I won't say that it's the best to like speak. It's good if you're reading. It's not the best. And then the recall needs to be very strong. Like you need to have that strong recall, because you're not practicing it real time with someone. Like, I'm not sitting in front of an actual Spanish speaker with that accent. So I do not know how to introduce myself or how to talk to them. Real time, I think it has got me into so many problems. But for like very basic things, like if someone just wants to make introductions, they can do it. I won't say that it's the best for learning a language completely. You need mentorship, or you need to introduce yourself into that language speaking environment. As you mentioned in your TED talk as well, that you need to speak to a native speaker to an extent that the native speaker now can say that I do not find your accent or your language speaking ability any different than mine, or somewhere 80% to how we speak in our country. If you get to that level, voila. If not, you still need to work so much on your language.
Right. And Duolingo will not prepare you for that. So it doesn't really prepare you for these situations. It gives you the basis of the language, but then you have to learn to use it. And you don't learn it with Duolingo. That's true. But so I like the situation that you just described. So, so you made a contact and you asked her, hablas inglés, and she understood your question. And then she said no. In that moment, like just that one moment, you were able to like say something. She understood you. She responded back. You understood her. Like even that, that feeling that you get from, oh, I'm actually communicating with someone. See, that's what you need to get more of. And you don't get that in Duolingo. So you have to, as soon as you advance in Duolingo, you have to try to engineer these situations more and more. I
Hmm.
recently met a girl, who she had a 1,850 or so streak of Duolingo in French. And so I said, wait, that's like daily, right? She said, yeah. She says, okay, let's break it down. And we broke it down. And it was 5.5 years of French or something. I said, wow, okay. So we had a conversation and she had trouble. She wasn't fluent, let's say. She was able to understand a lot and she was able to slowly get her point across with a lot. So, I mean, and she finished, like she finished the whole course and it was finished. And but I think that's where the thing just where the actual learning just starts. Unless you have parallel to that, you could really practice a lot. She had a few trips to France over the years, so she's used it a little bit, and she also been watching TV shows or something. So all that put together gets her at a very good level, but she's not really speaking freely. So that's something you still need to learn. And that's where the big joy comes. In the beginning, it's just like whatever you do, you make fast progress. If you start today with, be it Duolingo or a book or whatever it is, like if you start learning a language today and every day you learn new words and new sentences, there's like, I mean, it's overwhelming, but you're learning a lot. Like you have so much stuff that like every week you like double your knowledge. So in the
Yeah.
beginning, you do make a lot of progress, but it's not really usable yet because like I mean it's very far from speaking after the first few weeks. Like you can't really use much of the language, but it's a longer process.
And in terms
Yeah.
of like as you talk about language learning and processes, in terms of like starting a business, or let's say you want to start with a product directly addressing the global market, like you don't want to test your product locally and you feel that whatever you want to build should be for the global market. So, with respect to this idea that your product should address a global market directly, first, how viable it is. If it is viable, which countries do you think one should right now start with? Or what are the best languages one should start learning immediately for them to have that global success that they're looking at?
Okay. So I think the first part of your question, I don't know if I'm even able to answer that. I think what countries to look at for the rollout of a product depends on the product. And if it's more of if it's more of something that addresses human universal needs, then and it can even make sense just to start locally and just expand from there. Some people live in small countries and they want to build a business, and even if they got like a good rollout in their home country, it would be too small. So why not just make it English right away and international?
Yeah.
But I think that's a very like I think that's very specific to whatever venture you're trying to build. So I can't really answer that. As to which languages does it make sense to speak and or learn or all of that for if you want to be successful in business. I mean, English is always going to be number one. If you don't feel like yeah, get first. I would say get good in English before unless you have a passion or a specific need, or for other languages, or because you have relations there or family there, or you have, like if another language is not part of your family life, um, I would probably, make sure that your English is at a good level. And that's can be challenging enough for a lot of people. So, but that's probably the most useful thing to do as a general advice. And that's maybe, there's exceptions and depending on which countries you move in between and all that.
Hmm.
But English, I mean, English is just extremely important globally. And if you know English, you can make it in a lot of places and be successful in a lot of places. And then the question is like some people, yeah, for some people, I would say, yeah, if you were able to learn English as a second language, but you got to a good level, you think in the language, you feel comfortable in it, then you may have like the intuition that, oh, I think I can do this in another language, like you're doing it in Spanish now. So, by all means, go learn that and dive into it, and it's great. I'm all for this. But for other people, maybe it makes more sense to, once they get at an okay level in English, learn to present, learn how to learn public speaking, things like that. It will help you in business to pitch ideas, so learning all other things around communication skills is very useful. And also like even like meditation and things like that. Those things might be a priority over learning another language and another language. So it's also different for everyone. But I would say if you feel your English is not very good, I would probably work on that.
Language
Um,
first.
and it's and I realized like I grew up as I learned English as a kid from my American father, and so it's easy to say learn English. I know for some people it's not easy at all, but it's worth it. It's worth taking care of that language before any others, in my opinion, as a general advice.
Thank you for sharing this insight. I think it's more about the purpose of learning a language as well. Like so many people, like why are you learning something? A lot of people are now learning Mandarin, which and the sole purpose is since China is the emerging superpower, and a lot of people want to do business over there, and to get that cultural connect, they're learning Mandarin so fast. Like, and having these different cultural programs wherein from China to the world, learning the Chinese culture more. All because the main reason is the economic benefits of having associations with people in China. So I do love that aspect of language learning is also how economic it is, like how we attach the power law of economics to language learning. So do you think that is one of the most dominating reasons for people to learn a certain language? Like if you have the maximum clients from a particular country, and that's one reason that English is the most dominated language, is because of this reason that the most powerful nations right now or for so many decades have been predominantly English speaking nations.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like even historically in the last few decades, Japan used to have an enormous economy. Germany, like the is like the
Right.
world's second, third biggest exporter, and like English alone, it just became like I don't know exactly why it became the most universal language, but it's maybe it's relatively easy for some of the other Western nations to learn it, or I don't know what the reason, or maybe it's also because of the British colonization that it was spoken in like all the continent on all the
Yeah.
continents. Whatever the reason, it's like there's no I mean it happened, and it's useful to have a language that people can
Hmm.
fall back on, and it just happened I guess it was just the easiest thing for most people just to try to switch to English then. So maybe the reasons to learn a language are mostly for economic reasons. Like my 17-year-old son, he has now a 700 something streak in Duolingo for Mandarin. He just wanted to learn it, just like, but not for economic reasons. He was just, oh, sounds interesting, and now he can do all the sounds, and it's cool.
Yeah.
I think maybe historically it was a lot, for business reasons, but I think those reasons are partially being, the importance of these reasons is reduced now by technology. So there's a lot of technology, simultaneous translation tools, like your videos can automatically be translated into all the languages. Like
Yeah.
it's so much easier now with the tools we have to not need it for general communication or to understanding or to do business. There's always like we're keep trying to build technologies that reduce the need to learn another language. So I don't think these tools are useful at all for communicating with other people. On a business level, yes, there's help with that, but they don't give you the benefits that you get from learning another language. But these benefits aren't necessarily just economical. Like just from an economic standpoint, you could learn Mandarin for that, but it's a little bit far fetched. And I think because when you learn Mandarin, a whole culture opens up to you, and you meet
Yeah.
people and you meet humans and you make friends, and that's where the real benefit is. So maybe the original motivation is because it's future proof or important, but I think you'll find that the real thing it gives you is what the technology never will, the translation technologies. And I have glasses here. I have like the Meta Ray-Ban glasses that this has, like, it can simultaneously translate, and it just like, and I don't know, it doesn't, I still don't know what to do with it. Like, so I don't, even when the technology gets much better, uh
Yeah.
it's only good for like getting directions or to read a menu or to, but you don't make a friendship with like that through there's no way like that real feeling like you had when you spoke to this Spanish speaking woman on the subway. These human connections, you only get them when you start learning and you're able to communicate with, with another person. And for until you know the other person's language, you just both use English, and it's at least, it's somewhat there.
I think, yeah, we're trying to make these balances out there somewhere. So I agree with you on this page. And also to dive deeper into these nuances of, I mean, we've touched upon language learning as well and entrepreneurship as well. I'd love to know about like the current business that you mentioned of the skincare brand that is Camel Latte. So what made you start that? I mean, was it your love for language that you wanted to do manufacturing? I think it's in
No, yeah. So what happened is actually, yeah, so I've had skin issues. You may be able to see it. I have like pigmentation issues with this skin. And this is called vitiligo. And this is something that Michael Jackson had, where it's like parts of the skin, they stop producing the normal color. Like they don't tan anymore. It's just like they lose all the cells, lose the color pigments. It's just a cosmetic condition in the end. It's like, it's based on autoimmune. Anyway, so they say it comes from stress. Like there's no cure for it. So what Michael Jackson did, he started wearing a glove so people don't see his white hand. And then as it spread, he started having all these operations and tried to make himself white, because the darker your skin is, the more visible that is. But it's,
yeah.
yeah, but it's really, it's simply a visual problem. I mean, if it's very visible, people may have, psychological problems from it, or like whatever it may be. So if you that can be a problem. But anyway, so I had this and I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know is there something I could do about it. So I was researching all these skin things, and so that's why I was interested in like dermatology, and I learned a lot about it. And but it wasn't until later when I had kids, when they had like they would get like in the cold seasons, they would get very chaffy skin, like it would be very red and like very weird. And like we tried all creams and nothing worked. And I was looking in forums what can be done, and somebody said they had like eczema and some like these similar skin conditions,
Diseases, yeah.
and they were on vacation in Egypt in a pharmacy, and they were given like a camel milk cream, and that like really worked. I read that somewhere, right? And that was like the first time I heard about that, and then I forgot about it. And then yeah, and then when my family were traveling in the Middle East, and someone happened to have camel milk and gave us some camel milk to drink, and said, "Yeah, drink this. This is really healthy." And I forgot about I didn't even think about like skin or anything, right? But so we tried this camel milk, and then we started researching about that. Like we, as my wife and I, and so we started drinking camel milk every day for a while, and we got like a bunch of bottles from them. And yeah, and it felt good. And then we learned all about like all the benefits it has. And then we said, and then we came back to the skin thing with the kids. I'm like, yeah, no, it would be cool to kind of try to make something out of that. And but how do you do that? So that was an idea. And then it took quite some time before we figured out how the whole industry works, how to produce skincare, how to make it work with camel milk. We had like a few years of experimentation, and until we finally launched products. And the most interesting thing about it is really, or the most unique thing. So camel milk itself is like, it's a superfood, and it's very good for the skin. And it has a bunch of things, and like 6 times the vitamin C content of cow milk, and has all these proteins, AHAs, these acids that are like that help the skill cells. Anyway, but the unique thing that we figured out is like how to make it really effective for the skin was that in a normal cosmetic lotion that you buy, you will have about 70% of the product is water. And you can see on the label, usually the first ingredient they
Yeah,
mention
water.
is water and then other ingredients. And the last ingredient is usually just like 0.1% of the product, right? So sometimes you have in the end they put like some super hyaluronic acid filler or whatever for the greatest beauty, but it's at the end of the list. So it's really like water, a bunch of other things, and then like one
And
drop of
then,
that,
yeah.
and that's the problem with the industry. So what we did is we replaced the water and we used the camel milk instead of the water as the base. So our products are based on camel milk. Now, it makes it expensive, more expensive because
Yeah.
camel milk is very rare. Like the camels don't give a lot of milk, and I don't know, there's a lot of story about it, but it makes it very effective, and you feel it immediately as you put it on your skin. Like that, it's very it's just I don't know, it's just made for the skin, right? And yeah, this is what makes it unique. Um, and yeah, but that's how it started. But now we are currently moving. We are currently building a production in the U.S. as well. So we want to be producing in the U.S. We're getting milk from different countries. We've gotten milk from the Netherlands. We've been to Dubai. So this it's still a nascent industry. Like the camel milk itself in the Middle East, it's a growing. Also in the States, it's a growing trend. And because it's just for all these health reasons, people give it to kids with autism. If they drink camel milk every day, it like makes them much better. So there's this whole movement now, and it's a growing thing. But skincare is still in its infancy, so there's not much around. And it's also, the product itself, the milk itself is hard to get. It's rare. So that's why it's not really a mass market product for now.
Yeah, it's like a
Maybe in the
luxury
future it'll
product.
be because yeah. It's also there aren't many like camel farms that are, it's not like cow farms that are just like made for just producing milk. That doesn't exist. The farms we work with are like family farms. They have a few animals and they just graze all year and it's like they're almost like pets. So it's not like a mass production thing. Yeah.
I'm just too curious to know, like, in general, since you mentioned it's not a mass product, and like, since we are talking about the beauty industry or the skincare industry, on an average, specifically since you've changed the dynamics and instead, I believe water-based lotions have high profit margins. For your business, do you have like the same profit margins that any company or any skincare brand which has water as the main base, or you have lesser profit margins, or since you have higher manufacturing cost to match the profit margins you have to sell at a higher cost?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. To be profitable, we have to sell at a higher cost. And how should I say? The question is like in business, there's always a question between do you maximize profitability or do you also have certain standards and ideals and principles that you want to abide by, right? So
Right.
there are many founders or entrepreneurs, especially like in the beauty industry, if there are companies that start like natural skincare, they do it for a reason. They don't want, or like natural deodorants because you don't want like the toxic stuff on your skin because the skin
Hmm.
absorbs it just like if you drink it. You shouldn't put, bad chemicals on your skin. So that's sometimes the idea behind it. So sometimes you just have to spend money. You can't just do there's always a cheaper way to do things and to have more profit, but then maybe it reduces the quality of the product. So it has to be a balance because you have to if you want to survive, right? So
Yeah.
and for us it's definitely been a challenge because we haven't really priced our products that high, and with now growing costs again is like it's a challenge to stay profitable. But on the other hand is like if another company would do what we do but they're just business oriented, they might say, you know what, we'll just put a lot less of the camel milk inside and just add a lot more water.
Increase the, yeah.
But we could, because on the marketing, you can still do the same thing. You can still say, yeah, it's a camel milk product.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's like I think, especially with something you put on your skin, that's like, yeah, you might buy it because it sounds good, but if it's not good, you're not going to buy it again, and you
Hmm.
notice the quality. So
It's a
I
one-time
think
buy and then a waste.
I think it's always worth it to concentrate on the quality, to focus on the quality of your products. Make them as good as possible because we made products that we wanted to give our kids, that we wanted to be safe for the kids, but as effective as we possibly can. So we don't see we don't see us as being in the beauty space. We're seeing us as being like in the skin health space.
Hmm.
We think because it's and if you want to promote that, there can be no question on, you can't save on the quality. And sure, if the prices are higher, then it's okay. Maybe you can't make it available to the whole world, or to everyone, and that's okay too. Every business has their niche of and their target market and their niche.
Yeah,
um, you have to have this product market fit, and then you're okay. And then you make a difference in the world. Maybe you don't change the whole world, but
your market changes.
for me.
Better now?
No, your image is frozen. Maybe it will clear up. We'll see. So wait. Also, I took my AirPods off.
Is it better now? You can refresh if you want, because for me, your screen and my screen both are moving.
Okay, yeah. I don't see your image moving. What does it say? Up 99% updating. Now we're good. Wait, when the recording is done, you may need to stick around. Okay. Yeah, I see you moving now. It's just okay. Now the quality is better. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Well, it's coming on, and like it's kind of sometimes the quality isn't good, but the final recording will be fine, right?
Bye.
So it doesn't matter. Just internet connection. Good. So now after all these questions, you have a whole question catalog for me, or what?
So, like this, it's just like two segments left. So, we're just gonna jump on those two segments. One segment is 7 questions to fame, which is a rapid fire, and the next segment is 90 seconds to teach me something.
Okay. How do you do the action? Like this action?
So, thank you so much, Mark, for sharing the entire experience of building the brand from scratch, and specifically in such a competitive space. Providing quality, I think, is something that matters so much. Like making products that your family can use, which it's like, hi, I've built this, but can you yourself use it for your own satisfaction? So I love how these products are built actually from heart to serve yourself and others. So it's like a cohesive ecosystem. With that, I we do have an interesting segment that is 7 questions to fame. So I'll be shooting 7 rapid fire questions around your way, and let me know once you're ready.
And I should answer them without thinking about it, or what? Or how does it
It's
work?
rapid fire. I mean, yeah. So like the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay, but short, right? Short answer.
Yeah, short. Yeah,
Okay,
short
go
answers.
ahead.
Okay. So the first question is, which is your favorite language?
Wow. Actually, Arabic, even though I'm not fluent in it.
Wow, I love Arabic songs. I usually vibe a lot with them. So yes,
So do I.
thank you for the answer.
Something in common.
And the second question looks like, if you had to change things in the way you did business, what would you like to change?
In the past or now? Or now?
Yeah.
What would I change? Well, I would build a team quicker. What I mean by that, I know you want short answers. So when I had my burnout and everything went from I reduced within 2 years. I reduced my company from 10 employees to 0, and
Yeah.
then worked with outsourcing and all this and everything, changed everything. And I didn't want to manage a team anymore. So I took very
Hmm.
long, or I had a long time resistance to hiring full-time people, and I've done it not enough. And so I think if
Hmm.
I did something differently, I would probably start building a team again to have more people on the same mission, on a shared
Join.
mission.
Hmm.
I think that would be more
Right.
effective.
That
So that's kind of my plan now.
it's just beautiful because the more I've always heard the saying that people fail, systems don't. People fail, system don't. However, I still am of a belief that systems work because people do. You might so for in order to have all your systems work, you somewhere still need that Homo sapien touch to it. And I'm glad that you've mentioned building that team which has a shared mission and vision that you have for your company. So that's cool. The next question looks like, if you had a chance to change some experience of your life, what would that experience be?
That's I learned not to try to regret things, or I learned to try not to regret things. So every experience I've had, and I've had a few not so nice ones as well. Everything all the experience I've had have led me here, right? And have led me to today. So I don't think I would want to change anything, because if it was just a surgical change, I had quite a difficult relationship with my father. And I probably, if I had a magic wand and would have made that better, I guess that may be an answer. Having that led to a lot of positive outcomes in my life as well, and to where I am today, and my beautiful family, and some of the character traits that I have that I wouldn't have. So yeah, I wouldn't change anything. That is the final answer then.
The answer, and it's beautiful, is because each one of us is driven by the bonds also that we have. So I love the answer. What has been your 3 a.m. fear for you?
3 a.m. fear, not living up to my own ideals in order to be a good role model for my children. It's something that is it's just internal to me. I'm kind of very harsh on myself, sometimes very critical of myself. And yeah, so a fear would be not having a relationship, or yeah, just not being loved by my kids would be a fear. If I wasn't even aware of this until you asked the question, but I guess that would be it. And that comes back to the same thing. So I had quite a very, very strained relationship with my father, and he passed like 6 years ago, or 7. And yeah, and like my biggest I will always have a great relationship with my children, that that they will, when they think of me, they have loving feelings later on, when when they have their own family lives and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's a beautiful answer. Thank you for sharing this vulnerability as well. And according to you, which is the best country to live in?
I have not been everywhere. I
Yeah.
have not been to India, but India is not just a country. India is so large and diverse that it's even that you can't even say which is the best part of India to live in. I mean, there's more than one choice, and there's big differences
Yeah.
everywhere. So yeah, which is the best country to live in? Interesting. Again, I know you want short answers. I might get a little bit longer, because I was at a local market here the other day, and I met a woman that I know. She's from the US, but she's married a German, and she's lived in Germany for a few years, or like many years now. Like, she raised her kids here, and she had just come back from a trip to the US, and she was always like, she was complaining about things different there than here or whatever. But I'm like, look, it's just every time you go, don't bring the values. You're used to this here now. Like, you're on the market buying your groceries, like from a stall, and fresh stuff from the farmers. But then there, you have the comfort. You drive to a place and everything's so easy to get
Good.
to. So I said, don't take what you used to here. Like, it takes a few days to get used to the other way again of doing things and of living your life. But it's just, you
Yeah.
just dive in, and you're like basically fluent in both cultures, in both ways to do it.
Hmm.
And that's the beauty of it, just being able to adapt wherever you are. So for me, there's
Yeah.
not one best country. I don't have an answer for that. I love switching countries, and I usually don't, just by way of, I mean, I rarely ever spend more than 3 months in a country without moving to another country again. So I'm always like, even though, yeah, of course I have a home, or have a few homes, or a few places that I mostly live in, but I keep switching, and every time I switch, it's like you become a little bit of another person, or you unlock like a different part of yourself, to be part of the other place. So there's no favorite. I like this. I like the changing. I like the changes.
Wow. Yeah, I think that gives you the maximum power of exploring more, and then just explore and be like, figure out on the way that in this phase of my life, this is my comfort zone and this is ever evolving. So based on my that phase of life, it might change. For example, right now I love being in Mumbai, New York, Dubai, Tokyo. I believe that my energy matches with these cities, or these cities of different countries, which are, because I feel energetic. Like, there would could be a point in time wherein I would like slow paced cities or countries which have a certain time, like it's slow and they have a work life balance. So I think, agree with you, it depends so much on the phase and the exploration that you were at. What has been one advice that you received that changed your perspective?
Well, perspective on what? That's I so well, or let's say it like this. When I grew up, and I was 6, 8, 10, 12, during these years, my dad had a friend, a childhood friend, I think, who didn't have a home, but he was just traveling the world, doing little odd jobs here and there, and he would just like he was always traveling like throughout his whole life. And every few months, like once or twice a year, he would stop by our place. And so he sometimes he received mail in our place, and like because he didn't have a home, like everything he owned was in one gigantic backpack. At least when I was little, it seemed very, very gigantic. And every time he came, he told me these stories about the countries he's been and what he's experienced and how he was almost robbed here and how he's had these amazing experiences there and all these things. And what I learned from him, he, when I must have been 10 or something, and he taught me, he knew how to do self hypnosis. And he taught me, he hypnotized me. He did a session with me and he showed me how I can self hypnotize, which is essentially to, to learn, relax, go deep within, and then
Hmm.
maybe change things about, be it physical or be it emotional, change things about yourself and your being and just being so that was I had so I learned that quite early, and that shifted a lot because when I encountered problems or I was able to kind of do that. I was able to put myself in a very relaxed state and like like alpha brain waves. Like today I know what it means, but back then it was just I was actually I knew how to like count down and go within and then be inside and like kind of work in inside of myself. That's what it felt like as a kid, and it made a huge difference with my confidence and other things. It's like 'cause I was just going to say I was always very confident, but maybe that's something that built my confidence, so or helped build it, right? And I guess that changed. Yeah, that had quite an impact, even though like at some point like I kind of forgot about it and I didn't come back to that much later.
Mm-hmm.
uh
Right.
but yeah, it's a very open question. What changed your perspective? Because it
Yeah.
depends on what. But yeah, that definitely had an impact on me.
It's great to know this as well as because I have so many self-help books also that I have read. Most of them say that talk about this that sometimes the answers to the questions that you are finding outside, their answer lies within. All you need to do is scout and figure it out, but you would find the answer coming from within or it's in you. And I love how you mentioned about this process that had you figure out or gain that clarity to get to that process. So thank you for sharing this. The next question would be, what if you had to summarize the entire experience that you have had living these 4 or 5 decades in your life right now into one statement, like consolidating the entire experience is one statement? What does that statement look like?
You can make the world your home because that gets rid of the boundaries. If you just say, yeah, I'm from this country and then these people and those people, no, the world is so small. Just be at home in the world, anywhere in the world, anywhere and everywhere. You don't need to feel a stranger everywhere, anywhere, because you can just go to the next door neighbor and then you're a stranger there, right? So you don't have to like, don't think like the others and the other people, like it's just one world. And it's actually quite small if you think about it. And it's amazing. But I would say, yeah, just make the world your home.
I love this answer. This has been something that even I was once sitting with myself and I asked myself that someday if I meet an alien or there's an alien invasion and that alien asks me, where are you from? What would my answer be? And the first, like, what would your answer be if an alien encounter happens and an alien asks you, where are you from? What would you say?
Yeah, I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I don't know. That's not spontaneous. Spontaneously, yeah, you would say I'm from this planet, right? This is my planet. I guess we belong on this
Exactly.
planet because we're. I think it was Alan Watts who said that, like the trees that grow leaves, like they or the flowers they flower, and like and the earth it peoples. We are kind of like the flowers of the earth. Like we belong in this. Like we can't survive outside the atmosphere, right, by ourselves. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we're intricately we're part of this planet, like the leaves are part of the tree. This is like
Yeah.
we're totally intertwined with this planet.
And that's what my answer was. I said, Yeah, if an alien asks me, my first answer would be, "Hi, my name is Yukta and I'm from Earth." It's because it's an alien.
Yeah.
And he doesn't understand that the Earth is bifurcated into these planets. And my belief became stronger when I was.
The borders were different, yeah. As you can see, I haven't thought about this deeply because I just realized, like, we're just so unimportant. And whatever legacy you leave, how long is it going to survive? I think someone said you'll only live as long as or was that I think it was like your legacy lives only the as long as the last person dies that remembers you, something like that. It's like 400 years from now, no one will care who I am, who you are. Like, I mean, I would have to have immense achievements like Elon Musk life achievements that maybe in 300 years someone knows my name, but it has no meaning because I might find out what my great 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 grandfather's name was. Okay. And maybe he wrote a book or a pamphlet. So what? Like, I'll look at his name once and the rest of the year I will not think about this person again. And no one else in the world does. So it's like, it's actually, we're so unimportant. There's no legacy to leave. It's just, I think I'm about connections, human connections, connections to other humans. And that's really it's an exchange of love in a way, right? Love is the currency. And my legacy will be that people who came in touch with me felt better afterwards. That's all, like more loving. That's all I want to achieve. Not, yeah. So I don't think there's much legacy to leave beyond, beyond like one generation at the most. So I don't think it's super, super important. It's just that if you could teach the next generation good values, then that's good, and that's all you can hope for, really. All right, let's take the situation that you told me about in the subway with that woman, right? So she was lost. She was trying to get somewhere. She was able to ask you where she needed to go, and you had a rough idea of giving some directions, left and right, whatever. Okay. Then then you asked her something. She responded, and at some point she thought you understood her, and she just spoke too much, right? And then you switched to sign language. I think you said. Okay. So take that situation and think about this situation. First of all, replay it in your mind, and then think, okay, what would be the next thing I would have asked her or told her? Like, what should I have, or what would I want to have told her? Maybe I wasn't able to do it. And then how would I say it? Find out, write it down, like continue building this conversation, even the parts that actually didn't happen, like expand on that and then like a virtual conversation just in your mind, or you can write it out and then imagine yourself actually, because you still have like her image in front of you, like where you were, there were people around, like you remember the situation. So then when you learn some sentences, learn some things that you could have asked her, and that you could have told her, and like have this conversation in your mind, in your imagination, have this conversation with her while remembering what it looked like and everything. So this makes it very vivid for you, right? And do that with every time you have a situation like this. So maybe even carry a notebook with you or something, but every time you have a situation like this or similar, or even just as you're traveling and you're in the car or whatever, and you remember the situation and you remember something else you would like to say, either in this situation or in some completely new situation. Like, well, how would I say this? How would I talk to this person? And then you write that down and later you look it up to figure out what it was. Because if you continue doing that, then you're continually practicing, even though you're not really with the actual person. But you're always imagining yourself using the language. And the more you do that, is like the more practice you get. And then the I guess the cherry on top is when you listen to Spanish songs, you learn Spanish songs and like you start singing them, understanding them, like figure out what they mean exactly, and then start singing them, and then they will run in the back of your mind, and you will practice all the time. Your body thinks you're speaking, your mind thinks that you're speaking in the language, and it's a virtual practice, but it works. Mhm. But they sound so happy. Yeah, and that's actually not good to do that with other situations. Only with language. Only like, how would I say this? And then you practice, and then you know. But yeah, with other situations, you probably shouldn't do that. You should just let it go. Let the past be the past. I'd like to say you have a challenge now because you're the entrepreneur with a podcast, and I don't know. You've only done a few episodes right now, I think. So you know that most podcasts never make it past 15 episodes, and then even a much smaller percentage make it to 50. And if you make it past 50, you're already in the top few percent of any podcasts that survive. Your challenge is, commit to whatever 100 episodes or 60 or something like that. And and I'm sure by 20 or 30 you're so much in routine, and I've learned so much. Yeah, so that's a good challenge. So you prove yourself that you have stamina, and you're doing this, and I think you have everything it takes for it, and that's great. And then if there's and you're smart because you're already asking me for a second to come on a second episode on a part B, which is very smart to do. So yeah, I'm always happy to do it. So it's great. So I can't wait to see this growing and the numbers growing. So that's what I wanted to say. And this was also it was very nice. Thank you very much for having me, for asking all these questions and opening up a lot of space for me to just ramble on in all directions. And I hope some things were maybe interesting for some people. Yeah. So thank you as well, Yukta. Well, thank you so much.